Hey everybody, welcome to the Let's Talk It Out podcast. I'm your host, Alec Lifshos, aka Trey Busy. It is Thursday, October 24th, 2019. I'm really happy to, if you are returning, listening to the podcast, I appreciate you for your loyalty and your subscribing to the podcast. If it's your first time listening, I encourage you to subscribe and listen to some of the former episodes. Again, I apologize to everybody. I usually do an episode every week. Last week, I had a lot of personal things going on in my family, so I didn't get around to recording the episode for everybody, so I apologize. But today, I'm really fired up today. I have a special guest with me today, and I'm just, I'm ready to get back into doing the swing of Let's Talk It Out. If this is your first time listening, Let's Talk It Out is a mental health podcast where me and the guests come have a passionate conversation about different topics, or we just jump right into discussing them and helping you guys out or giving you guys a place to go to feel comfort. If you feel like there's no one there for you, you can reach out to me. Sometimes the guests are accommodating as well. I have loyal listeners. I'd like to build a community for people that are dealing with mental health conditions. So, like I said, I have a very special guest with me today. She's a licensed professional counselor of mental health. I'm gonna let her tell us what university she went to, because she said it to me earlier and I can't remember for life. Pam, can you please tell people what university you went to?
I went to Immaculata University in Pennsylvania, which, fun fact, used to be a Catholic. No, I just wanted to share this. It used to be a Catholic university that was an all-girls school that was taught by nuns. So, not now, but used to be. So. Yep.
So when I think about Catholic schools, especially if it's like, all girls school, are they really strict there, like discipline wise? Like, are we talking old school with the rulers to your knuckles when you get step out kind of school?
I guess so, but it wasn't like that when I was there. So, yeah. But I tell you what, if I missed a class, go ahead.
No, if you missed a class, what happened?
If I missed a class, they would call my dorm. And they would call my dorm and let me know. Yeah. So it's pretty serious education that I got there. So
people don't know about me. I went to Northern Illinois University, and they did not, they did not call your dorm if you didn't come to class. They'd just go ahead and just fail you. That's what they did. They didn't care as long as they got that money from you.
Gotcha.
That's how the system of college works. So Pam, I want you to tell people a little bit about yourself. Like, let me know, like, what made you get into the field. Mental. What made you want to be a professional counselor?
Sure. So I am a psychotherapist, and I actually specialize in treating young adults. What got me into that is really specializing initially in grief and loss. I lost my grandmother at a very young age, and it had a very profound effect on me. And it really ties back to when I treat young people, they're coming to me with with a deep seated feeling of loss of freedom and loss of hopes and dreams. What I'm saying? Like, they're coming into the world, thinking that adulthood was going to be one way, but it's very, very different.
I always try to tell high schoolers and people in college, like, I can't wait till I get to this point in my life because things are going to be easier for me. I'm like, buddy, I'm going to tell you right now, that's not true. I'm sorry.
Now, yeah, it's like we're doomsday fortune tellers, but yeah, it's very hard for young people today. It is. And I try to be a very sympathetic ear to them, because unfortunately for a lot of people, I think the people in their lives, maybe from different generations, are not as understanding of the challenges that young people face today with inflation and, with student loan debt and things like that maybe they didn't experience.
Yeah, they I'm 29 years old, so I'm classified as a millennial. So a lot of times the generation before me likes to label us as being lazy and, non-committal to certain things. And we're like, well, the jobs that we are getting right now, financially, we can't live off them like you guys could have off your jobs. It's like, and not you guys as you, Pam. I'm not trying to date you. We never
Right.
discussed your age. I'm saying you guys in general.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
They
Those
expect us
guys.
to get a job. Yeah, those guys, like right, like they
Yeah.
want us to grab a job and
Mm-hmm.
work there for 40 years and retire.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dream, right? Go to college and get a degree and retire in that one job. Well, that's not gonna happen. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's not the case, and the concept that so many of them, and I know I'm being a bit tangential here, but the concept like, well, I started with nothing. Well, I put myself through school, like all of those sort of things that are so antiquated. They're so they don't really apply now. So I think that it's one of those things that I can also offer a unique perspective because I am a parent of a millennial. So I do understand the struggle that they are going through. And I know that it is incredibly hard to find a job in this job market. It's very competitive. I know that rent is like housing in general is just ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I feel like what I am able to offer is sort of bridging that gap of understanding what a lot of millennials and what they now call Zoomers are going through, um, but also having this, you know, what they call youthful energy, you know, um, that I can bring to them.
Thank you for being the first person to actually feel sorry for us. I have never heard anybody feel sorry for us ever. It's always just we're lazy. Technology is ruining us. That's it. But in
Right.
all
It's
seriousness,
not
though,
buying houses because you're buying avocado toast, and this whole narrative that's being spun, which it, it, it's really just because there's really so many things that are outside of you guys' control, right? The recession and all of these things that have nothing
so
to do with you.
in all seriousness, though, Pam, I mean,
Hmm.
I want to ask you a couple things that you spoke about. Um,
Absolutely.
so you said I want to circle back to the psychotherapy thing. Like,
Hmm.
can you explain to my audience like what exactly is psychotherapy?
So psychotherapy, really at this point, people are coming into therapy uh, just for any kind of stress that's going on in their life, for anxiety, for depression, and just finding ways to be able to cope with that, to manage that, um, and just having someone to help them figure that out, to navigate that with them. Um, so that is the process that 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 we do. Like at this point, it's really become like a part of everyday wellness for a lot of young people. Like since 2016, and we all know what happened in 2016. Um, the therapy, like people going to therapy, the rate has gone up 438% or something. Like it's gone up a lot. So I think the stigma is going down. And I think podcasts like yours is incredibly helpful in addressing that too.
Well, thank you, Pam. I mean, again, that was one of my initial reasons for starting the Let's Talk It Out podcast is because
Mm-hmm.
in the African American community, it's looked at as being trivial to seek help for mental health
Mm-hmm.
conditions. They're looked at as being a myth. A lot of times, us growing up, we were told that when we're dealing with something, our grandparents or our parents would tell us that we just have demons or something like that. There's a demon in you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the whole churchy and then when I always think about when the older churches too, like the ones with the long wooden benches and the choir, they all got the robes
Mm-hmm.
on and it's the
Mm-hmm.
organ and all that kind of thing. Like they need to go pray on me for throw holy water on me because I'm
Mm.
dealing with anxiety and I can't sleep or something. Like, oh, you got a demon, and I was like come on, man.
Right. Like give it to God kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like granted, like um, I understand that's how they were raised. That's what they
Mm-hmm.
were taught. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do everything in my power, um, with the resources available to me to
Mm-hmm.
destroy that stigma and in my
Yeah.
community, and it's not just my community but other communities as well, right? So again, like you said, the percentage of people that are seeking therapy is going up. So that's
Mm-hmm.
great
Mm-hmm.
news if that's happening.
It
People
is.
personally, for
Yeah.
me, I found out that they were seeking therapy, so that makes me happy to know that. So I just, I'm grateful that we are at that point in existence
Mm-hmm.
where it's not looked at as being a myth, that mental health is not looked at something that's just, just exists and nobody acknowledges, right? So I'm grateful for that. I want to ask you a few other things.
Sure.
So you said I'm getting a little bit personal now. So
Mm-hmm.
we were
Mm-hmm.
earlier. You were saying how you lost your grandmother at a young age,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And it had an effect on you. So with that kind of trauma happening
Yeah.
in your life, like let's say you have a client, someone comes in and they lost someone that's close to them. How would
Mm-hmm.
you help them? Like what would you do for them? What kind of encouragement can you give them, or what would you do for a person dealing with that?
So for someone experiencing loss, traumatic loss, I think the main thing is that there's not a time stamp on it. Um, there's not a certain amount of like, okay, at this point, like you'll be over it kind of thing. Like so that reassurance of like, you know, you're not going to go through these concrete stages. It's not a linear thing, you know? Like it's more like kind of being out in the ocean and there's times where it's calm and then there's times where a wave might hit you and kind of knock you over. So it's a matter of like, like working through sort of navigating those waters kind of thing, you know? There's definitely times where, like, my grandmother's birthday was recently, so that would be one of those times where it was a big wave that hit me for sure. Um, but having rituals can be incredibly helpful, like having ways of, honoring that loved one that has passed. Also finding meaning, finding a purpose or meaning from the person that has passed, which for me it would be becoming, a therapist, becoming a healer, because the people that helped me go through the grief were the ones that inspired me to become a counselor.
So what you're saying, like there's different waves. Like there's like calm points during the where you're dealing with the healing of
Mm-hmm.
the traumatic loss, and then obviously there could be trigger points that cause the waves to be more exponential. One of my friends and regular listener to the podcast lost
Uh-huh.
lost their mother a couple
Oh,
years ago,
wow.
and I mean, like you said, the around the birthday that could be a very triggering time for
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
because you remember that person, and then you start thinking about the happy times you guys had, and
Mm-hmm.
you start thinking about you just miss them. It's just
Yeah.
you wish you could be with them. So
Mm-hmm.
that makes total sense for that to be a time of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that
Sometimes it
that
could
that.
just, sorry.
No, go ahead, Pam.
Sometimes it could be something as simple as like, you smell something and it's like it's that person's perfume or cologne. It can kind of just sneak up on you, how waves do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, smelling something that they used to cook,
Mhm. Mhm.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's never easy, talking
Mhm.
about loss and trauma, but
Mhm.
like I mean, this it's a part of life. It's the reality. I was talking to somebody. They said that this is what they told me about trauma. They said it's not avoiding it because you can't avoid it, but it's like
Mhm.
just knowing what to do when it happens because it's unavoidable.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's unavoidable. It's a part of life. So
Yeah, for sure.
I want to because we talked a little bit about trauma. We talked a little bit about psychotherapy. I want to ask you,
Mhm.
what are some signs and symptoms of someone who's dealing with I'm gonna go into the direction of PTSD. Like, how do
Mhm.
I know if I or someone I love is dealing with it?
So, if you're looking for signs and symptoms of PTSD, um it would definitely be kind of along the lines of some of the things that we just talked about. Like if someone reacts to, say, like if you walk up behind them and, they're startled. If, you know, they they smell certain thing, like we talked about too, like if they smell certain thing, a lot of sensory things that they have like a reaction to, um and things like nightmares too, like nightmares, flashbacks, things like that. It would really be something that, if they were feeling that way, like, you know I guess speaking to your listeners too, like, if you're feeling like, wow, I think I might have PTSD, like, then definitely seeking out a counselor is the best thing that you can do to try to sort that out.
So the reoccurring theme, guys, is if you haven't figured that out yet, is going to see a counselor or a therapist, right?
For sure. Hmm.
That's the reoccurring theme. I mean, that's ultimately, some people like to, I don't know, light candles and smell scents or something like that, or just go. For me personally, I go to the gym. I like
Hmm.
to, when I'm feeling stressed out or anxious, I go to the gym. That helps me out. Um, some people like to meditate.
Hmm.
Meditation
Hmm.
is a good thing to help them out. But even still, like ultimately, you have to go see a counselor.
Hmm.
You have to go see a counselor. And a couple weeks ago during the show, we were talking about how just finding someone that you like, make a list of things that you were looking for someone that you want to be your counselor, and
Hmm.
try to find someone that accommodates almost everything on that list, if not everything. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is someone that you're going to be sharing intimate details about your life with, and you want to find someone that you're comfortable talking to. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, you should make lists for a lot of things. You guys, since we're
Yeah.
talking about lists, you need to make lists about what you're looking for in somebody that you want to date. What you want to look
Hmm.
for in the
Hmm.
house you're going to move into. I mean, no, I ain't going to go down that way. I ain't going to go down that path. But
No, but you're onto something. You're totally onto something because people will people will come to therapy, right? Meet with a therapist, and if they don't click with that person or it's not like the best experience, sometimes the takeaway is like therapy is not for me. When in reality, like if you like broke, if you broke your arm or something, or you know what I mean, like you went to go see a doctor for that and you didn't like that doctor, then you would go see a different doctor. You wouldn't just, continue to have this broken arm. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, you'll go get a second or third or
Mm-hmm.
fourth
Mm-hmm.
opinion, depending on
Yeah.
what kind of injury it is.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. Definitely, because a broken arm is very uncomfortable. I can I can only
Right.
imagine. You go see somebody and they say, "Oh, it's put some ice on it, you'll be all right."
Right.
No, it's my arm is broken, right?
Right.
So
So
again, I
maybe
mean,
that's an extreme example, but you know what I'm saying? Like we have, therapy is hard to do because you're going into a room, you're talking to a stranger and you're telling them these like very intimate, private, details of your life. And if it doesn't click the first time, there is a tendency to be like, well, I'm not doing that again. But the reality is, like, finding the right person is really, really important. And, even when I meet with people for the first time, I tell them, like, if I'm not the right person for you, I encourage you to keep looking for that person because this is really important work that you're doing.
if someone has a hard time talking to you, Pam, then that's that person because you are very easy to talk to, um, obviously
Thank you.
intelligent, insightful. Just I don't see how someone could come see you as a counselor and be like, you know what, she's not the right person for me. I need to go find somebody else.
Thank you, Alec.
Alrighty. So where we at now? I'm just trying to stay a little bit on track. So we talked a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about what you do. We talked about, the psychotherapy. We talked a little bit about trauma and the grieving process a little bit. We talked a little bit about
Mm-hmm.
PTSD, going to find counselors, that sort of thing. But I want to talk to you about because we said what you would let them know as far as like with the trauma and grief topic. We said that you would let them know that it's going to come in waves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
feelings will come in waves.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say someone comes in to see you that is dealing with trauma and grief, and it just feel like that they're at the point where, because I'm going to go towards the dark conversation now that people don't like talking about, but it's real, it's real life, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's say they come to you and they tell you that they don't feel like that they can go on anymore.
Right.
They feel like that they can't live without this person, and that this is this life has no meaning without this person. Like
Mm-hmm.
give me like it's I'm putting you inside your therapist seat right now, right? So
Mm-hmm.
tell
Mm-hmm.
me, what would you say if I came in and told you, I've been trying, but I can't live. I feel like I can't live anymore without this person being here for me. Tell me exactly, like, how would you assess that situation?
Well, Alec, I think that first of all, I would thank you for sharing that with me and being able to trust me enough to share that with me. And we would talk about how much emotional pain you're in to get to that point, right? And then with when I'm in those situations with people, one of the key components is to find out like who are your support people. Like, and I actually have my clients list out their top 3 support people. And we write them out, right? And then when they have those thoughts, I want them to contact those people one by one, call or text, right? Before they do anything, right? Because we have thoughts. We all have thoughts. I'm not minimizing that. We have about 50,000 thoughts a day, right? Um, but contacting those people one by one, and then if they can't get a hold of any of those people, those 3 people, then you know, then you would go to your local emergency room, call 911, that kind of situation. But more times than not, my clients have told me that by reaching out to those supports, like has saved their life because it has given them that pause and given them that connection to people that they needed at that time.
So it's very important for people to make sure they have a strong support system around them
Mm-hmm. And
for obvious reasons. I mean, it doesn't have. Go ahead, Pam.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening.
I was just gonna say, like, it's important for people to have that support system around them because, again, I mean, you need people to just be able to turn to. You can't feel like you're by yourself. That's the main
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have people out there that are, understanding. That's the main thing. They need to be understanding, and they
Mm-hmm.
need to be uplifting. They need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you feel like you are important to their life, and that
Mm-hmm.
you have meaning. Your existence matters to that person, right? I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
want someone
Mm-hmm.
to put you in a happier mind state, just knowing what you mean to that person. So
Right.
3 people, parents, loved one. I don't know. Um, I I can't. I mean, best friend,
Best friend.
cousins,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So
Yeah.
that makes total sense, Pam.
Now, one of the things is like we're never taught, right? Like how to ask for that support, like what exactly to say, you know? Like I've been guilty of like sending that text of like, so I need to talk to you. And then it just sort of turns into like, so how are you doing? Right? Especially as a therapist. But I actually I have a link up on my Instagram right now to an article that spells out like 10 ways of letting people know like how like that you need help like and how to say it, which is incredibly helpful for my clients.
You say you have an article that has 10 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me can you give me a couple of them? Get listeners a little bit of a teaser before I send them to your link.
Sure. So, okay. So one of the ways it can be like really straightforward is saying, I'm struggling with my mental health and what I'm doing is not working. Can you come over? Do you know what I'm saying? Um, like just being really specific about it. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, like telling someone I'm in a bad place, but I'm not ready to talk about it. But can you help me distract myself? Things like that. Like things where like when you're in a not so good place, like maybe you can't find these words, but this article makes it helpful to be able to have these words.
That makes so much sense. I mean,
Mhm.
just again, like being as transparent as possible. Because
Mhm.
if you message somebody and say, "Hey, I need to talk to you," or
Mhm.
that kind of thing, like just you're not, the more urgent you seem, because it is a very urgent matter, right? It's
Mhm.
very urgent. This is
Mhm.
a life or death situation. If you are having these
Right.
thoughts and you need to talk to somebody, you need
Mhm.
to express that in a way that is life or death. You can't just say, "Hey, I need to talk to you." Because I get
Right.
messages like that sometimes, and I don't really. I mean, I respond to them when I can, because most of
Mhm.
the time
Mhm.
someone say that to me, they about to ask me to do something for them that involves my wallet. No, I'm kidding. But still, for seriously, in all seriousness, though, like
Yeah.
you need to
You
be
don't know what that means,
close.
right? Yeah.
Closed mouths don't get fed. Pretty much what the
Mhm.
saying goes.
Mhm. Yeah. And people are hesitant to be that straightforward because they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to bother people and I don't want to be a burden." But when I flip the script on them and say like, "Okay, well, if your friend, like your friend, your best friend, texted you and said, "I feel suicidal right now. I need I need to talk to you." Like, wouldn't you stop what you're doing and talk to that person?
I will personally drive to his house
Right, exactly. You
immediately.
know?
I don't care what I
Mhm.
got going on. I'll
Right.
tell work. I'll holler at
Mhm.
y'all later.
Mhm.
This is my best
Right.
friend. This is what he got going
Mhm.
on with him. I need to go see him.
Right. And the look on my clients' faces are like, "Oh, like, yeah, no, like, you're not a bother. You're not a burden. Not at all."
I mean, it's urgent, right? I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's great. I'm over here. I'm trying to sneak and go into your bio on Instagram. I'm like, just messing around, trying to go
You're
see
like
what's
gonna
going
print
on
out
with
the
the.
article.
Hey, don't tell me I got a wireless printer here hooked up to my phone. I print it out, mail it out to people, right?
Yeah.
Um, get some addresses. So, Pam, again, I just want to thank you again for taking time
Mhm.
out of your very busy day. I mean,
Thank
you're a
you.
mother, you're a professional, you have other things that you can do. For you to be able to just sit down in the middle of a day, on a Thursday, to have a conversation with me about mental health, and such a serious conversation. I mean, we're talking about trauma and grief, and to the
Mhm.
point where people are having suicidal thoughts.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
I mean, just because if I walk up to somebody, random person on the street, and say, "Hey, you know what? Next Thursday at 11:30, I want to have a conversation with you about trauma and grief." They're gonna look at me like I'm out of my mind, right? They go, well, that's pretty much how the conversation went with us. That's how I got you, to come. I found you on Instagram, reached out to you, and you
Mhm.
agreed to doing it. So again, thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
I
My
want
pleasure.
just wanted to again, I mean, make sure that I expressed that, because you could have been doing anything else.
No, I love it. Thank you so much.
It's always nice to meet people that are passionate about helping others,
Mhm.
and they're
Mhm.
passionate about mental health.
And to be honest,
So I
the fact that it's called Let's Talk It Out, I was like so stoked because um, most of the time my week is spent listening. So it's really nice to be able to have this conversation. It really was.
and this definitely does not have to be a one-time thing, Pam. I mean, if you want to come back on a later day, you have something you want to share. I mean, my platform is open to you. You just let me know,
Absolutely.
and we can set that up. But we're not going anywhere right now. I just want to say that too. Just want to
Okay.
let you know
Let's
now.
put it
We're
out
not
there.
done, but
All
I want to
right.
make sure you know. Make sure you know.
Got
If
it.
you want to come back to the podcast, just be like, "Hey Trey, I got something I want to talk about. I feel like I want to share.
Okay.
Okay, come
Cool.
on down. It's
Got it.
like my podcast is like the opposite of that church down in Houston where they lock in when people come when it flood. They don't let people in there. What's his name? Joe Osteen. He don't like letting people in the church when it flood.
Mhm. Mhm.
My podcast is the opposite. I let people come in and share whatever
Right.
they want to share. I'm not
Yes.
nobody's locked out. So
Fantastic.
I just want to throw that jab out there. You know how it is. Anyway,
Mhm. Mhm.
I just wanted to ask you just a couple more questions before we get
Uh-huh.
out of here.
Uh-huh.
So the big D word that that's really heavy in in mental health world. The
Mhm.
word
Mhm.
that so a lot of people use, but sometimes they don't really understand the complexity of it. The depression, right? I mean, depression is the word
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
like, man, like you think about that word, you start thinking about somebody standing in a dark room and it's raining outside and they have no lights on and it's just like they just look sad. And a lot of people um, automatically hear depression and think about the word sadness,
Mhm.
right? That's what they automatically assume depression is. So I'm gonna ask you, you know, from your perspective, from your professional perspective, um, let's say someone comes into your office and they tell you that they are that's what they tell you, right, themselves. I'm dealing with
Mhm.
depression,
Mhm.
right? So let's say if somebody walks in there, sits down in your chair, and they just tell you, hey, hey Pam, I'm dealing with depression,
Mhm.
just like that. What would be the next thing you say to that person?
Well, I would tell them well, I would ask them to describe their depression to me because it takes on many different forms, right? For some people, it feels like a dark cloud that's following them around. For some, it feels like they've like fallen into a well. For some, it's putting on a happy face all day, and then at the end of the day, they're just exhausted, just pretending that they're fine. So I would explore like what their depression is like for them as an individual.
Thank you. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
saying that. So, guys, that's a
Mm-hmm.
professional saying that. That's not me. Depression has different forms. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say that. A professional said that.
Do you feel
If
validated,
you,
Alec?
I do,
Okay.
I
Okay,
do,
good. So
because
we're on the
sometimes
same page.
people think I'm. Look, some people think that when I tell them depression has different forms. It's
It does. It has many different
what I describe
faces.
it as. You sit in a what we say. We sit in the dark room. It's raining outside. You look sad. You're just looking out the
That's
window.
a big pharma
Depression.
commercial, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you are dealing with depression, make sure, I mean, it could be lack of energy, you're just always tired kind of
Right.
thing. It could
Right.
be always irritable, like you're just
Mm-hmm.
really irritable. Any
Mm-hmm.
little thing just pisses you off
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, right? I mean, like you said, it's just there's different faces of depression. I want to make sure people know that because and they
Absolutely.
I want to make sure they hear a professional saying it, not
Mm-hmm.
me. A professional saying it, guys. I'm kidding. Uh,
No, because look, Allie, when I see those commercials and when the person then changes into like now they're gardening and they're, frolicking frolicking in the meadows, I'm like, could still be depressed though,
Right.
you know?
It reminded me like when that Joker movie just came out when he's like dancing and jumping down the stairs happy and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the medication starts working, right? Like they're out of their
Mm-hmm.
shell now, guys. They're
Mm-hmm.
not
Mm-hmm.
depressed anymore because they're not in a sad room crying by themselves, right?
Yeah, but we know better.
I try to this is a clean episode, guys. I haven't cursed one time. I got close just now, but I'm not
Go
going to.
ahead. Go
I'm trying to
ahead.
keep it clean.
Well, I'm trying to tell you what to
It's,
do on your podcast. Okay.
I'm trying to be a gentleman today, guys. It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks since we sat down and had a conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to keep
Mm-hmm.
it clean, for the new listeners. Um,
Okay. All right.
I just want before we go too much further, I just want to say,
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, well, a week and a half ago, Sunday, October 13th, I lost my 23-year-old cousin, Emil Tank Hill, to gun violence in Chicago. My family has been we're in a state of shock from it still. It's a state of shock, and it's really it feels like a nightmare waking up. Like we wake up, especially when I first found out about it. The first few days, it felt like a nightmare. Like you wake up and it's just like this is reality, right? Like you feel like you're
Mm-hmm.
living in a nightmare. Just to know that
Yeah.
someone so young who hasn't experienced anything in life is
Mm.
no longer here. So it's
That's
just
terrible.
I couldn't record last Thursday. I didn't have the
Mhm.
energy mentally to do so, and I just want to say rest in peace to my cousin. I just want to make sure I said that on the
Mhm.
podcast
Mhm.
because it's heartbreaking. It's
It
really
is.
heartbreaking for my family to have to deal with that. So just wanted to say that while we're
Mhm.
still recording. So
Yeah. I'm so sorry to you and your family.
Thank you. It's senseless. Chicago needs to do something different. They need to clean the streets up, do whatever they have to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Pam, before we get out of here, I don't want to keep you forever. I want to ask you, do you have any last words of advice or wisdom you'd like to share with the Let's Talk It Out community before we leave?
I guess for me, it's worth sharing that um, in my experience of being a therapist, that the clients I've had that have had the most like positive results, if you want to call it that, it's not based on any studies or anything, not yet. Um, it is the clients that have found a way to incorporate three things, and one being like some kind of movement. So you're onto something with the gym there, Alec. Um, movement, like something in nature, like being outside, and something creative. So you got that too with the podcast. So, like, if you're able to like go take a walk, like in the forest and go paint some happy trees, like you're nailing it, you know? Um, so,
Absolutely.
so, you know, I can't speak to like, all of the science behind that. I mean, I know that exercise is important. I know that, you know, getting outside of the four walls of our office and our house and things like that is incredibly important. Um, as is creativity, right? Sort of tapping into our inner child and all of those kinds of things. But the three things combined, when I have a client that can, incorporate those three things into their lives, like they start doing much, much better. So I just feel like that was worth sharing with you guys.
So a physical activity,
Mm-hmm.
outdoor nature, and expressing yourself creatively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
those are very wise words. Pam, again, thank you for coming to sit down on a Let's Talk It Out podcast with me to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking forward to it this whole week.
Me too.
I want to thank you. You were looking forward to it. I don't think you was looking forward to as much as I was, but thank you.
I did my
Thank you
nails
for
for it
this.
though. I mean, yeah. So.
You did. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
And that's dedication right there. You did your nails for our audio podcast.
Yeah,
You got
that's
to
special.
appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Thank you guys who are subscribed to the podcast. I'll probably be back next Thursday, or I might come on Tuesday. You never know. If you're subscribed to the podcast, you will get the notification when there's a new one available. So again, thank you guys for listening in, and I greatly appreciate it. Talk to you guys later.